Good morning. Welcome back to Stand on Guard. I'm your host, David Krayden, coming at you live from our nation's capital in Ottawa. And it's a real pleasure to do this broadcast today. I actually prayed before this broadcast because I want this to reach the hearts and souls of not just evangelical Christians or conservative Catholics or church-going people, but everybody out there who's concerned about freedom of religion in Canada and how we're losing it. I'll be back in mere moments with more.
The Prime Minister lied and his minions continue to lie.
We need political change. But we also need to resolve to resist. Yes, please share this broadcast with your friends and family. Let's get those numbers really high today, and let's get some subscriptions, and let's really move forward together because we need to be together. And I thank you for giving it the thumbs up. Like the station, we can beat that YouTube algorithm. By the way, I did get a haircut. If you're ever in Lanark County, Hair by Chanel, look her up. That's not a paid advertisement. It's a favor to an old friend. And I don't mind doing that. And she's always got a great haircut for me, and I've been doing that for years. But I want to say something before I start here. Do not go on this station and post comments that's smearing Sean Feucht. They will be taken down. Sean Feucht was my guest. He is my guest. He made an effort to come on this show when he's been in media demand all over the United States. And I'm one of the few Canadian interviews he's done. I think maybe one of two. And it was an honor to have Sean as an interview subject. I think you're going to enjoy that interview. He said a lot of really incredible things. I did it yesterday, so I'm putting it on this morning. And I tell you, it was a really moving interview. And the people were telling me, you don't want to do this. No, not a lot of people. The usual suspects were telling me, you don't want to do this because of this reason and that reason. And I just ignored that because I tell you, I'm an evangelical Christian, but I'll tell you this, sometimes the worst cases of backbiting and gossip come from evangelical Christians who are jealous of people who are doing the work of the kingdom. That's all I'm going to say about that. I want to touch on this because Sean and I discussed this in the interview. And anybody who thinks, hey, Christianity is not in danger in this country, you can go anywhere and worship. Here's Terry Newman's column from last November. 592 places of worship burned in 12 years, and the Liberals don't give a damn. 80% of those cases were arson. Yeah. And Justin Trudeau actually blamed the churches for the arson because they weren't into reconciliation enough. Absolutely shocking. Look at this. This is a response to one of Sean Feucht's posts on X. Go to church, exercise, defend and enjoy your freedom to worship God. Use it before you lose it. That's Sean's message to Canada. We're losing it. We might have lost it. Kevin Von Hammontree responded, sorry, ours burnt down along with dozens of others. Strangest thing, church buildings in Canada, it would seem, are extremely flammable. Weird, right? Weird. No, I got to say this. Weird. Oh, what? It's not. It's the or what. This is arson. Deliberate destruction of Christian churches. You think you have freedom of religion? Ask Sean Feucht. People are actually suggesting this was some kind of stunt. This was the news. I covered it. He was denied access to public spaces in 6 Canadian cities. He had to seek churches. So that's the facts, people. And this is why I wanted Sean on the show, because he eloquently states the case about where Canada's going. But don't give up. Don't give up hope. We can combine our strengths. We can unify to fight back. And this is what Let Us Worship is all about. And you'll hear about that in the interview. It's about reversing the process that began during the COVID pandemic, where churches were conditioned to accept the authoritarian overreach of governments at the municipal, provincial, and federal level. Churches were conditioned to allow police to come in, arrest their pastors, and evict the people from the church. That's the legacy of COVID. But the good news is we are pushing back. I want you all to sit back and enjoy this interview with Sean Feucht. I think it's really, really worthwhile. And I'm very, very proud we did this yesterday. Enjoy. Welcome to Stand on Guard. It's my pleasure today to have pastor, evangelist, musician, performer, Sean Feucht on the show today. And of course, if you missed Sean's visit to Canada last month, he's coming back in August. And I want to make sure we publicize those dates again. And he's coming back August 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 24th in Western Canada. And as Sean, you're right here on your ex-post praying that Western Canada will be a little more hospitable than the East Side. What do you think? Did you anticipate anything remotely resembling what happened to you in cities in Eastern and Central Canada, where you this hostile, antagonistic reaction, this anti-Christian reaction, and attempts to absolutely cancel you by mayors and city councils? Did you anticipate any of that?
Oh, no, of course not. I mean, I've been coming to Canada for 20 years, been leading worship and prayer and conferences and trainings and events all over. And, this is something that was shocking to me, especially because even in the last 3 years, we've done big outdoor, large outdoor Let Us Worship gatherings, just like we've been doing in the US, we've been doing them in Canada too. So this was our third year of hosting those. And this time we really felt led to go from coast to coast. And that was really, as we prayed into it as a team and we planned to prepare, that was what we put together, and just had no idea the insanity that would come in the days to come. So, I was pretty surprised. I think a lot of people were too. However, it's starting a national conversation that needs to be had around religious liberties and free speech. And, we're going to let, certain groups of individuals do whatever they want without permits, and we'll even condone them. But then we're going to allow Christians to be attacked. And I think that the whole world was able to see this hypocrisy just a few weeks ago.
You described what happened to you and the atmosphere in Canada, this anti-Christian atmosphere, this complete dismissal of freedom of religion as demonic. Would you still say that? Because I would agree with you. I'm an evangelical Christian myself. Obviously, I was very interested in this story. I almost feel like I know you because I wrote so much about you, including a human event story that you really liked and you responded to, where I said Sean Feucht hasn't given up on Canada and Canadians shouldn't either. But was this reaction truly demonic? I think it was. What?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, what has to, what comes into play when you see this coordinated, vehement anger and attack on peaceful Christians worshiping, in 6 separate provinces, cities, municipalities coordinate together with the mainstream media to build this narrative of, these events by a MAGA, superstar, whatever, that are hateful and all this kind of stuff. I mean, none of that's true. Like the lies and the slander and the campaign that has to be waged. I mean, you can only say that it is spiritual, that there are spiritual forces at work. And I think that, we were able to expose, even normal people, like not even Christians, not even evangelicals, not even church-going folks, were like, what is the big deal? Why are you attacking this Christian that wants to come and host outdoor worship services, deeming them public safety hazard and canceling all the permits, and then allowing essentially Antifa to infiltrate a church and throw smoke bombs? It gets to the point where you begin to realize, man, there are dark spiritual forces at play. And I think a lot of people's eyes are being opened to that reality now.
Interestingly enough, concerning that smoke bomb, Rebel News, which covered your tour quite extensively, is actually offered $1,000 reward for the capture, the arrest of the guy who threw the smoke bomb your way, because the police were standing there and did absolutely nothing in your defense. So incredible. But that's what we come to expect in Canada, which really leads me to my next observation, is that your campaign, Let Us Worship, and you've got the T-shirt on right now. I think this is fantastic, because I don't know how many times I wrote it last week, that Canadian churches became conditioned to this kind of behavior from mayors, municipalities, and the local police during the COVID pandemic, because of the lockdowns and because of the mandates. Police would simply walk into our churches, arrest the pastor, haul him away, and clear the church out. And by the way, the strip club is open and the bars are open, so why don't you go there? But it's dangerous to go to church. We saw this over and over and over again. And my good friend Arthur Pawlowski was jailed for ministering during the pandemic. Other pastors, Christian pastors, were jailed, arrested for simply ministering as Christian pastors. And I had an email from, I won't mention her name, but somebody saying, we don't have any Christian persecution in this country. The churches aren't being persecuted. And all I could say was, where have you been? We have gone through incredible persecution. Churches, hundreds of churches have been burned down in the last 5 years, and 80% of them are arson. That's what we're going through in this country. But do you think the churches have almost accepted the idea that we don't have any constitutionally protected freedom of religion in Canada? And of course, they're trying the same thing. They tried the same thing under Biden in the United States. Forget the third, forget the amendment saying that there's freedom of religion in this country. Did we become too far accepting of state control over churches during the pandemic? And do we need to push back and fight back right now?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things at play here. When there's an enormous apathy in the Canadian church and in the U.S. church. And, that's kind of what led to and predicated this, overreach of government, where, all of a sudden, we forget that, we don't allow government to tell us when and how to worship God. We've never, as Christians, we submit to a higher authority, right? And so, do we fear God or do we fear the government? Well, we don't let the government tell us when and how to worship. Like, that's just not how it works. If you're a Bible-believing Christian, if you're a church that's been infiltrated with wokeness or doctrine of passivity, or maybe even in some cases, like we've seen in the U.S., you're in bed with the government, pushing vaccines and pushing all kind of ideologies, then you're going to cower, And I think Jesus had some pretty spicy words for people like that. However, this is a real moment where we get to see what the church is truly made of, and we get to watch the remnant people wake up. I find it fascinating that even in the midst of this, we had person after person come to our events in the East Coast, all the way, from Halifax to Toronto, that weren't church people. They weren't. A lot of them weren't believers. They just were wondering what was going on in their country, and they show up, And, they end up at the altar at the end, repenting and receiving God into their life to change them forever. So I think that, this will be used in a positive way. It's obviously like, the saying, all press is good press. They've hyped this up so much now that it's unavoidable. Every church has to, it's a red line in the sand. Every people that wants to believe in the Charter of Rights in Canada and the ability to freely worship, and you're going to double standard and let Muslims fill the streets and take over entire, even in front of churches, walk and do the call to prayer and do whatever they want, or naked bicyclists, do a pride march parade that's encouraged and prime ministers hugging them. All the while, Christians are shut down for being bigots and being hated and being controversial. And we've seen this card play out before. And I'll tell you, it doesn't end well for the governments.
You mentioned the gay pride parade that Prime Minister Mark Carney attended on Sunday. No, he didn't go to church. He went to a gay pride parade. I call Mark Carney a smorgasbord Catholic because he, much like Justin Trudeau, he picks and chooses the doctrines he wants to follow from the Roman Catholic Church. He's not too keen on pro-life stances as the Catholic Church is, so he rejects that. The Catholic Church isn't too keen on transgenderism or a lot of LGBTQ agenda issues. Mark Carney says, that's okay, I'll reject that too. But he goes to a gay pride parade, and of course, this picture is seen around the world. He's embracing this half-nude male, and of course, half of the people in the gay pride parade are scantily dressed, sometimes outright not wearing any clothing. Children are at this parade. And this happens throughout Canada, and I know you have the same issues going on throughout the United States. Children are being groomed at these events. At the very least, children are seeing obscene things that in any other context would be not allowed. People would be arrested. They'd be charged for going around like this with kids in the vicinity. It's okay to do at a gay pride parade. Did you find it ironic that Mark Carney said absolutely nothing while you were being canceled in Canadian cities? He said nothing about, hey, Canada, we have a Charter of Rights here, and freedom of religion and freedom of thought are protected under our charter. He said nothing. As a matter of fact, the official or the conservative leader, he's no longer right now the official opposition leader. He's in a by-election. But Pierre Poilievre said nothing either. And I was a bit disappointed in that. But do you find it ironic that Mark Carney would say nothing about freedom of religion, nothing about you being canceled, nothing about the anti-Christian phenomena, I don't know what else to call it, or the anti-Christian disease in this country, but he would go to a gay pride parade and literally embrace that parade? Did you find that almost like a poetic discourse from Mark Carney as he illustrated what he really does care about, and it's obviously not Christians?
Yeah, these stories write themselves. I think that I'm not surprised either of those politicians stood up and said anything. I don't know that. I think that these are moments like this where you kind of can test the sincerity and the value of the political leaders. And I think that Canada's lacking in some bold voices. Although I will say I have been really encouraged by some of the members of parliament from across the country that did rise up and some statements and pushing back. And they currently have a petition circling right now in Abbotsford to reinstate our permit that in my opinion was legally removed for later this month. So there is some people that are rising up, but we definitely need a whole lot more. And we need others to call out the blatant hypocrisy. If the former prime minister, even when he was brought up the topic of the churches burning, if he sided with the arsonists, not sided with the churches that were being burned or the communities that were destroyed, but siding with the arsonists in statements that he made, to me, this just like looks like more of the same. And nothing's going to change unless we continue to raise our voices and mobilize and push back and shout from the rooftops and see people being awakened to what really is going on in the nation of Canada.
I actually, during the weekend, this was all going on. I guess it was a week before last. I stood up in my local church and I said, if you're not aware of this going on, I've been reporting on it. You can read it here. You can watch my broadcast. You can see it in the mainstream media, but you'll see it in a very skewed fashion. And a lot of people came up to me afterwards and they said, you can't look at this and think that the return of Christ is not imminent and that we aren't in the last days. It's just so many things happening concurrently. And it's just, I grew up in an era where we all thought Christ was coming back next week, and it was very, very common. And we went through a long period where people sort of forgot about prophecy, and they forgot about all of that because I think a lot of people tried to predict dates and they tried to predict exactly when Christ was coming back. But I hear this from a lot of Christians who contact me through my broadcasts, through my church. I hear a lot of people saying, I don't know how we can continue on this road because it's just so corrupt. It's so anti-Christian. Do you think we are entering a phase that could be called the last days? And is the return of Christ close?
I mean, I think all the signs are there, for Matthew 24, that kind of sets the context for what those days look like. Wars and rumors of wars and earthquakes and famines and tsunamis, natural disasters, false prophets, people rising against each other. I mean, it's all there and it's inescapable. It's unavoidable. I think for me, I really try to focus on the fact that, the increase of darkness happens at the same time as the increase of light. So you see both of these things rising, and really what's being removed is the middle ground. There's no gray area anymore. It's simply light and darkness rising together. And, I like to focus on the light. It's the prophet Joel calls it the great and terrible day of the Lord. I like to focus on the great aspect of it because I do think that there's a lot of great things, and I think that it takes something this bad, it takes something this horrific, this shocking, to wake people up. And I know why I wasn't looking for controversy. I'm not looking for more battles. I'm not looking for more issues. But for whatever reason, there was a moment in time where our first 6 cities that we planned to come to culminated in this firestorm that unveiled in a lot of people's minds the true motives behind government officials in the media and the obvious anti-Christian bias and Christophobia that is present, alive and well in Canada. So, God will use things like this to expose. And I believe there's a lot of exposing going on right now. It's happening in the US and in Canada, around the world. And as believers, we got to pay attention. We got to be like those that understand the times and the seasons in which we live. Like the sons of Issachar says in the Bible, we need to be like that. And so, in the midst of all the pushback and resistance and all that stuff, we got to stay awake. We got to stay aware to what is happening in our world and how God is moving.
I was amazed how the mainstream media all spoke in unison. Like, as usual, they're reading the same talking points. You see this in the US with MSNBC and the New York Times, National Public Radio. They'll literally all be reading the same headline or writing the same headline. And in Canada, everywhere you went, every city, every story from CBC, CTV Global, and most of the major dailies all refer to you as MAGA affiliated. And I looked through your website, and I obviously saw your X posts, and I examined those very thoroughly. you pinned a video with Pete Hegseth, who I have a lot of time for. I think he's a great Christian in charge of national defense in the U.S. But I was really I couldn't comprehend why you were being called MAGA affiliated, like you were out there every day during the presidential campaigning for Donald Trump. Now, I'm sure you voted for Donald Trump. I would have had I been a U.S. citizen, and I supported Donald Trump in the columns I wrote and the media I produced during both of his three of his presidential campaigns. However, having watched the videos, and I'm sorry I missed your concert outside of Ottawa. I'm in Ottawa, and that was the one day I'd promised the family to do something, and we had to go elsewhere that day. But if you're in town again, I will be there. But it amazed me when I watched your concerts. So the guy doesn't talk about politics. He preaches the gospel of Jesus Christ. You're not up there saying, vote Donald Trump, MAGA, MAGA, MAGA. And it wouldn't offend me if you did, because I have a pastor who loves to talk politics sometimes during a sermon, and he'll be as blunt and as forthright as he wants to be. And I would never take that right away from any Christian pastor. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is that your services look like any ordinary Pentecostal Sunday, and that's the environment I grew up in. And people are worshiping Jesus Christ. They're raising their hands. They are having a wonderful time in the Spirit. And I'm not seeing an overt political message or even an underlying political message. I'm seeing you preach the gospel of Christ. So is this all nonsense to say you're MAGA affiliated and you're somehow divisive and you're controversial? Maybe the gospel is controversial, but people are suggesting it's your politics, not your faith.
Well, I think that those people they're very lazy, and those reporters are lazy, and the news outlets are lazy, and they're banking on the fact that people won't actually research and look at our tons of videos and recaps and media stuff we produce and podcast. I mean, all the stuff that we do, like you could not assume that or even in any way correlate or connect the fact that we come to Canada with a mega agenda. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's like, it's lazy reporting. It's people that don't want to look into it. And we've noticed this. This happens with the media. I mean, hit piece articles are written about me all the time. And, those that want to believe them will believe them. They don't look into the details. But, I mean, I even told the media, I said, listen, we're going to do this thing in Toronto. We had to move it because our permit was canceled. In a church, we're going to live stream the whole thing. Come and watch and see what all the fuss is about. See how political this is. See how controversial this is, right? Of course, a lot of them showed up. A lot of them shared it, broadcasted it, and it was just the gospel, And I've just come to realize, if God wants to use the controversy to pull in people that would never go to church normally or watch a live stream of worship, then I'm fine with that. But, the reality that these guys are saying, I mean, it's all for clicks. It's all hype and hysteria. None of it's real. And people that really follow our movement and are a part of it and come to the things, they know that. They just laugh. So in some ways, the media and these guys, they're speaking to their own echo chamber and trying to satisfy them with answers that they think clap at.
Yes, the echo chamber, sort of like Blue Sky on social media. Perfect example of an echo chamber. But I was amazed Abbotsford was pushing back, because Abbotsford, and I'm from British Columbia originally. My hometown is on Vancouver Island. I had family in Abbotsford for years. I worked for a member of parliament from Abbotsford for a couple of years. Abbotsford is in the heart of Canada's Bible Belt. You can't get any more Christian than Abbotsford. It has more churches per capita than any other Canadian city. And yet the local government pushed back. Were you surprised? And yet, and you say you've got a petition going to reverse that?
Yeah, I think that Abbotsford, it's been known as maybe the Bible Belt of BC or something. I think that was probably a lot of years ago. And so I think this is kind of exposing, hey, if you cancel peaceful outdoor Christian worship service, it's probably not the Bible Belt anymore. Probably shows that you've been infiltrated, you've been hijacked. I think there's obviously mass migration issues in BC. I think that there's been takeovers of a lot of these towns that were known to be either revival centers or Christian centers. I don't know that that's the case anymore. So in one way, I think a little more shocked because they're thinking Abbotsford. For me, it's British Columbia. I wasn't really shocked.
Yeah, I think that's a very valid observation. It's probably thinking of Abbotsford as it was 20 years ago. But I was amazed in Montreal, and I know they've got a very woke mayor of Montreal, Valérie Plante, who actually fined a church for hosting you. This, to me, sets a huge precedent, a very dangerous precedent in Canada, because I'm not aware of anything, any law, any statute, any regulation that says a church needs a permit to host a pastor, an evangelist, a performer of any kind. That's their right. That's freedom of religion. And yet this church was fined $1,500, or sorry, $2,500 for hosting you. And did you find this to be almost the injury upon injury while you were in Montreal? Not only did they say you can't perform at a public place in the public sphere, but the church that you formed, a Spanish Catholic church too, God bless them, they were fined for hosting it. Did you find that absolutely shocking?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they were just frustrated that we're not going to stop. And I told them this. I mean, we have a 5-year history. Let us worship. Nothing shuts us down. Not the weather, not Antifa, not mayors, not governors. Like when we say we're going to come somewhere and worship, we're going to do it. And I think that they just could not bear to see the fact that we were not going to be controlled. And so they shut down our first venue. Then when we came to the church, they sent the police there to try to intimidate us. I told the police straight up, listen, we're going to do this. You're going to have to drag me off to prison while all this media is around, which isn't good for your government towards my government. You guys are trying to work on a deal right now. I don't think that's the best plan. So then we ended up doing it. It's like, well, we'll just find them, like we'll just stick it to them. And it's like, well, now you're in serious breach of Canadian law, and lawyers are salivating. We're working on some litigation right now against this because they really overplayed their hand, and they tried to show that it was a concert and it was planned as a concert, and in order to do a concert you need a permit. And it's just like, no, this is a church service. It's what we do everywhere we go. We do the common things we have in church services. And so we resisted. And I was really proud of those pastors and those people that showed up. And in the face of enormous opposition, we saw fearlessness. And I think that is a picture of what God is doing all across Canada right now. He's raising up that remnant bride, that remnant strong body that's not going to be pushed around.
Well, praise God for that. And I think you're probably right, because if nothing had happened to your tour, I think people would not have noticed how bad things are in Canada. I don't think it would have been that evident, but because you were persecuted, literally persecuted, harassed, and canceled, Christians across the country noticed, and now they're saying, what has Canada come to? And I think they're ready to join Let Us Worship, to join the spirit of that march and to fight back and to push back against this. And during the Biden administration, the justice system in the United States was weaponized against Christians. Pro-lifers thrown in jail for ridiculously long sentences for peaceful protest. Parents at school board meetings concerned about their children being taught nonsense policies like critical race theory were arrested, thrown out. Are you optimistic that that is at least being changed under President Donald Trump? He has come out against there being more than two genders. There's male and female. There's a biological male and female. Common sense to
Yeah,
most of us wasn't to Joe Biden and his administration. And he's also come out against DEI policies and critical race theory policies. Are you optimistic that freedom of religion is looking a lot freer under President Trump than it did under former President Biden?
yeah, and I have to go here, so I'll answer this quickly, and then I got to jump to another interview. But I think that the sobering reality of what we experienced in Canada is potentially what it could have looked like if President Trump didn't win. And I think that this is one of the reasons we fought so hard and prayed so much and believed so much that it was looking really dark in the Biden administration. The attacks on churches, weaponizing the IRS, weaponizing the DOJ to go after pro-life activists. I mean, I could go on and on and on. And so now we're so grateful because we have a president that is standing up in religious liberties, the right to worship, that does fear God. I mean, I just did a worship record inside of the White House. I mean, it's incredible. So yeah, we're really grateful, and I'm really, gives me a lot of hope that if God can do it in my country, that he can do it in Canada as well. And so yeah, I'm praying that those days of deliverance would come soon to the people, the frozen chosen in Canada, and that's what I want to stand for.
Question: people wanting to go to your concerts in Western Canada, do they need to register online, or is it first come, first seated?
No, we would just love for them to come. Thank you for spreading the word. We would love for them to show up. It's all going to kick off actually 2 weeks from today on August 20th in Winnipeg. Now that venue has been canceled, but we have several options for where we're going to be. So we're going to be in Winnipeg August 20th. The 21st, we're going to be in Saskatoon, which is, they're holding strong. Praise God for Saskatchewan. The 22nd of August, we're going to be in Edmonton. 23rd, we're going to be in Kelowna, and the 24th, we're going to be in Abbotsford. So all of those cities we are coming to. Just some of the venues may change. So if you go to lettusworship.us, you can find out more info. Or if you go to lettusworship.ca, you can go there and you can also sign our petition. I think we've almost got about 22,000 people that have signed it so far. So raise your voice, raise up a sound, and let's see God change things across the nation.
Right. We will be promoting it, Sean. And thank you for coming back to Canada despite the reception you got the last time. God bless you. God bless your work. And we're fighting together. And thank you so much for showing Canada what it needs to do to get back to God. And God bless your work. And we'll see you again, Sean. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for all your work. Thank you for reporting. I love it. Keep sending us the articles. We'll keep sharing them. God bless you.
Okay, will do. Bye for now. Yes, bye for now. And that interview was stepped on, suppressed big time by YouTube. And share this broadcast with your friends and family because YouTube won't. They don't want this interview to be seen. They're proud of the way, apparently, of the way the Canadian government behaved. I'm not proud of it. I think it's absolutely appalling. And I will be promoting Sean's appearances. He's starting at the gates of Western Canada in Winnipeg. He's going all the way to the West Coast, just about Abbotsford. That's not far from Vancouver. It's just literally an hour away. Know that area very well. For all of you who did watch today, I want to thank you for watching and thank you for supporting this show. And is it frustrating to put an interview like this? I think it's pretty high quality. To put an interview like this on and have YouTube relegated to the basement to share it with nobody and to have an audience so small. Yeah, it's very frustrating when other people are putting up broadcasts that, I really don't think are all about other people's interviews. So that is frustrating. I'll share that with you. But I'll share this with you as well. I think what Sean is saying is very integral to the future of this country. Maybe we don't have a long future, but as long as we're here, we have to keep fighting. And that's the message of this station. We resolve to resist here. And I wrote a column for Human Events, and I didn't even pick the headline. I had a much more pessimistic headline, but the headline chosen for that story was Sean Feucht hasn't given up on Canada. Canadians shouldn't either. And I sent that column via X to Sean. He reposted that and said that was the message I preached last night in Toronto. So when I read that, I said, we still need, even as the gates seem to be closing, even as the curtain seems to be descending, as the curtain seems to be falling on our freedom in this country, let's keep fighting back. Let's never miss an opportunity to say no. And let's never miss an opportunity to say yes to our rights, to our freedom of speech, our freedom of assembly, and our freedom of religion. I don't care if you're watching this today and you don't care about Christianity or evangelism. You think they're all corrupt. Maybe some of them are. But you do care about your freedom of religion, your freedom of expression, your freedom to believe whatever you damn well want to, without the government stepping in and saying, sorry, you're not allowed to look at that book. You're not allowed to read that speech. You're not allowed to see that video because we said so. That's not the Canada. And here's the t-shirt I'm wearing again today, and I wore that during Sean's interview. I am a Canadian, a free Canadian. Remember that? It came from the Canadian Bill of Rights in 1962, authored by then Prime Minister John George Diefenbaker. And in many ways, the Bill of Rights is much more eloquent and much more relevant to freedom than the Charter of Rights, which at times can be very vague because that was Pierre Trudeau's invention. And Pierre Trudeau could be very vague about what rights we actually possessed in this country, just as his son, Justin Trudeau, could be very uncertain about what fundamental freedoms meant to Canadians. Well, this interview this morning that you saw was all about fundamental freedoms. And that one fundamental freedom we talked about, of course, was not just freedom of religion, but freedom of speech. And your freedom to read, your freedom to watch, your freedom to believe what you choose to. And that's the message I'm going to continue to get across on this station. And I thank you for watching today. I'm just going to show you the story because, and I'm going to thank this person tomorrow on the show. But thank you for going out and buying some of this merchandise. You're helping us out in a big way right now. And I'll be back in a moment. Yeah. Buy some merchandise. Really appreciate your patronage. It's always appreciated. And we've got some great shows coming up for you in the next couple of days. We've got Naomi Wolf. We haven't nailed down the day or the time yet. Well, it's probably going to be the usual 10 o'clock live show she's going to be on. Just a question whether she's on Friday or Monday or Tuesday. Naomi is just always running around the world, but she's a fantastic guest. I know you've seen her on the show 2 or 3 times in the past, and I can't wait to talk to her again about what she's up to. And my good friend, Neil Oliver, that Scottish, how should we, it was Scottish philosopher, Scottish pundit, Scottish wise man, really. He'll be on the show in the next couple of days as well. And we're going to be talking about the Online Safety Act in the United Kingdom and how it's continually getting worse. So looking forward to that. Anyway, probably said enough for today. Thanks for watching. God bless this country and Godspeed. Godspeed to all of you. This has been David Krayden broadcasting to you live from Ottawa for Stand on Guard. Resolve to resist. Bye for now.